I titled this talk breaking the AI imagination barrier, because from my point of view, AI is already here and now. We've talked about some of the things happening in the consumer world. We've looked at what's possible from an agentic standpoint. But I think one of the really interesting things is that there's all of this power to these AI models today, which we'll look at in a second. And there's a lot of money going into AI, right? So beyond what's being monetized from a consumer standpoint, there's also just a massive amount of investment into infrastructure. We've all heard about the billions of dollars and maybe hundreds of billions of dollars that are going into massive data centers for AI. Every company is investing into AI, maybe their own AI models, their own AI infra. And yet, I think as a lived experience, especially in the workplace and the marketing context, of course, we're all doing some things with AI, but I think it's not as prevalent and as transformative as, we all know the potential to be and where it's going to be in a few years. The punchline to this entire talk is going to be, the real gap is actually in the imagination and the initiative taken by everyone in this room. It's already here, it's already creating value. People who, those of us who are going out of our way to go and figure out how to deploy AI in useful ways are getting profound leverage from it and really, quite magical, exciting experiences from it. It's all about how do you find those real use cases today. So, with that being said, wanted to do a quick recap. We've heard a lot about the model progression over the past few years. I think this graph is one of many that really profoundly illustrates how far models have come. And not just in terms of simple kind of SAT style questions like answer this knowledge oriented question, but really in terms of reasoning capability, right? So there are a number of tests that actually test for a model's ability to think like a human, to reason, to answer questions that are harder than just a simple, tell me what the capital of a country is. And what we're seeing is that these models are getting better and better. Maybe this seems obvious in hindsight, but there was a period where a big question is, are these models going to asymptote? Are we in 2022 or 23 or 24? Have we seen the point of kind of flattening returns in terms of model intelligence? And I think the answer is decidedly no. And to make that very real, I wanted to show a very realistic example of what these models are capable of and comparing different models over time. So here's a real prompt. You can do it today. Go into ChatGPT, choose one of the models, or any other AI chat product. But we basically gave different models over the years a bunch of Nike earning calls, could be any other company, and we asked it to analyze from a CMO standpoint what's happening with Nike and kind of their corporate landscape, right? And so, starting with GPT 3.5, which itself was a major advancement, as we all know, with the breakthrough of ChatGPT over prior generations of models. This one actually can't even do the prompt because it's too large for the context window of the model, right? So these earnings calls are very lengthy. You can't even really do it with GPT 3.5. Now, GPT 4.0, which is kind of the default model if you go into ChatGPT today, it gives a decent answer, but it's a little high level, it's a little jargony, it's not really that human-like, and it's certainly not human expert-like, right? Now, O1, which is the reasoning model that is a lot more intelligent for reasoning type use cases, it actually gives you a very concise and cutting through the noise sort of output, right? And they say brevity is the the essence of genius. And I think as these models get smarter, they're able to actually give you exactly the answer that you care about without just dumping a bunch of extra words on you. And then if you look at O1 Pro, it's even better. It's basically O1, but fine-tuned to or tuned to basically be able to go and reason for longer and use more compute cycles to think harder. So this is like, if you really want to get the answer right and you spend an extra few hours really thinking about your assignment, that's O1 Pro. And then you have O3 Mini, which is the newest model, and it's a smaller model, but based on the most advanced training run that OpenAI has done to date. And of course, now we've all heard about DeepSeek, the big buzz about it, and I think the point here is that it actually does a pretty good job, but most importantly, it's open source, right? And that's been what's caused such big headlines is, these models are not just getting smarter from the biggest, model companies, but they're actually becoming more democratized, right? So, incredible model intelligence is becoming more and more available at cheaper cost, both from a training standpoint as well as from an inference standpoint. And of course, DeepSeek created massive waves, created $1 trillion of stock market movement. There's still some open questions about how it was trained, exactly like, what was behind this model. But I think what is, certain as a result of DeepSeek and the waves they've made is that we're gonna see more and more model improvement come to everyone and be available in more ubiquitous, cheaper, faster forms, right? So, there's the age-old saying like, better, faster, cheaper. You can't get all three of those. I think in this world, we actually are seeing better, faster, and cheaper model intelligence available to all of us. And, and yet, one of the big issues today with realizing the value is, we've seen it's like water everywhere. There's all of this model intelligence, all of these massive improvements, and a lot of infrastructure investment. And actually, this was a very timely Goldman basically a report that came out. But it basically says, look, like there's no actual aggregate productivity uplift, right? Like we've talked about AI and its massive leverage in terms of improving actual productivity and economic output, and we're not really seeing a lot of it, and a lot of it is because there's not real in-practice adoption, especially within the real business use cases that are gonna drive value. And in fact, maybe even more sadly, there's surveys out there, this is one of them, that show there's actually a very small amount of real effort and real impact being delivered across the corporate landscape and enterprise landscape today. Whoops. And so finally, there's this view that, okay, we've done all this infrastructure investment. We've done the, the building of the picks and the shovels for this gold rush, but we haven't actually gone in and mined the gold, right? We haven't actually gone in and gotten the real business value from AI. And how are you gonna do that? From our experience working with a number of customers and working with both the innovators and also companies that aren't doing as much with AI, we've come firmly to the view that the AI models are not the magic. I mean, they are awesome, and we're grateful for all the companies doing amazing work to make these models better, cheaper, faster. But really, it's about your data, your workflows, and your work, and contextualizing these models into that workflow. So, it's really about the imagination of taking models and thinking of knowing where you can actually deploy them to create value. And that's gonna be the real unlock to this $1 trillion AI value gap question. There's all of this money going into it, but in fact, if we don't see returns and returns soon, it's gonna be, it actually will be a hype bubble, right? There's gonna be a massive amount of investment that doesn't pay off, and then you'll see the bubble collapse. So there's also this urgency around, hey, we actually have to start seeing the real value of AI hit the business and hit impact, or else we're gonna have a problem. And all of us are gonna have a problem because we're not actually able to participate in the big unlocks that were promised to us. I do think that this is gonna be a major time period where you see separation between the companies and people and even functions that get it and those that don't. And really, what we're gonna see is maybe even more so than any other technological shift, computing, internet, et cetera, there's gonna be some companies that are early adopters who really figure out the know-how and the best practices for how to use AI really effectively. And I don't think it would be an exaggeration to say they're gonna get a 2x, 5x, 10x leverage in terms of enterprise value, in terms of their ability to grow efficiently versus the companies that don't. There's actually a huge amount of turnover in the Fortune 500 or the S&P 500, whatever top set of companies you wanna pick, every few decades as a result of major economic change, technological changes. And so we are ripe in the middle of a new shift where the winners and losers will be decided. And in fact, it's not about who's gonna is AI gonna take all of our jobs, but really, can we be the ones who go and leverage AI so that we're superpowered humans with AI, right? And use AI effectively to become a 10x more impactful worker, including especially in marketing contexts where the leverage is enormous. So, from all of our work across, 80% of the Fortune 500, we have 100,000 plus paid customers, including obviously many enterprise ones. We've been very fortunate to work with many of the top companies in media, in retail, in tech, and ultimately see and get a firsthand point of view, as well as, work very directly with companies on how do you actually go and deploy AI into your data and workflows? How do you deploy them into your operations, whether it's related to content production or creative operations or marketing campaigns planning? And what we've seen is there's kind of 3 easy win AI workflows that we think every company should be using today. And these are basically design patterns where you can plug in AI and immediately get very easy and very profound value. And it's basically document extraction and analysis, AI web search, but in an automated and integrated fashion, and advanced voice of the customer use cases. We'll talk about each one in a little bit of detail in a second. On the doc extraction front, this is basically a big breakthrough for the latest models, because before the recent models, you actually didn't have enough context length in the model, so they couldn't handle long enough strings or text to be able to take an entire document. It could be a 50-page rights contract in a media setting, right? So, hey, we've licensed this song or this music, but there's a 50-page royalty contract, right? And you just could not upload that entire document into a model all at once. You had to chunk it up, and there's all these complications with doing that. And so now the fact that these models are not only really smart, but they're able to absorb entire document length chunks of text, actually make this a huge breakthrough application of AI, where you can take any document virtually. It could be an analyst report about a company, about competition. It could be internal documents, like here's a campaign brief. It could be internal strategy documents, but really any of these long form documents. And not only can you do simple things like extracting out basic terms like, hey, what was the royalty rate for this particular licensed piece of media, but in fact, you can actually go and ask it more advanced questions as if a really intelligent domain expert were to go and read the entire doc, and you could ask them anything about it, right? So, you could go in and say like, hey, are these terms fair in this contract? And here's our definition of fair, what we're trying to optimize for, and actually get a very, very, very good answer. Maybe you're not gonna replace the need for a human to then go and follow up and review it as a final pass, but it gives you a very good first answer, and you can do it instantly. And with the current models, we're talking cents or tens of cents, maybe low dollars, depending on the length of the document and the type of question being asked, right? So, as much as these more expensive and more complicated models are hard to run from an inference standpoint, we're still talking about a very, very low cost relative to the amount of human value that we're getting from these use cases. So really, really excited about this one. And if you just think about any document that you encounter in your day-to-day work, there is probably a highly valuable document extraction workflow that you can build around it, and not just as a one-off where you have to go into a chat product, upload the document, prompt it, hope that the prompt works well, but you can actually build something recurring where you have every single document that you're constantly looking at in a workflow, and automatically extract out the key insights that you care about and then do something with that. This is something we've seen come up time and time again across our enterprise customers, and it's always a really, really good place to start. And often, it's something related to contracts, market research, et cetera, where there's really valuable info locked up in these documents that take a lot of time to go back and re-review every time. The second archetype of high-value use cases we've seen is basically executing automated web search in the context of a workflow. So we've all probably seen Perplexity. You can go out and instead of Googling and just clicking on each result, and you as the human going and reviewing each result, trying to find what relevant context you care about, Perplexity, of course, and now OpenAI web search and many other offerings similar to it are able to go out, do a web search, but then go and basically scrape all of the results and feed that all into an AI model that goes and answers your question for you. So you're not just getting the raw results, but you're getting a question to anything you ask, right? It could be, hey, what was the revenue of XYZ company last year or last quarter? It could be something more insightful, right? Like, what is Nike's current, brand strategy, right? Or what has been the digital mix of, let's say, a retailer like Williams-Sonoma's revenue. So it could be something very specific, doesn't even have to be factual. It could be, give me your opinion of this trend, right? Like what's gonna happen with AI over the next 10 years. And what's really cool is that it's one thing for you to be able to go and execute a AI-powered web search as a one-off, right? You can do that, saves you time from having to go and read through a bunch of results yourself. It's even more profoundly valuable if you think about leveraging this as something you can fire off in an automated way across hundreds or thousands of entries of, it could be doing customer research, right? And maybe you have a number of companies that you're tracking from a competitive standpoint or just out of a market intelligence standpoint, other brands, products, and executing a web search on each one of them to see what's being said about them, to see how they're doing, to see just basic info about that company, like what's the estimated revenue, and to be able to do that in a really automated way. It's as if you as a human, 5 years ago would have had to go and spend maybe 10 minutes, maybe 5 minutes on every single entry, going and doing a web search, reading through the results, and pruning that for the right answer, right? And now you can do it in an automated fashion at scale. And so this is something we're seeing across many customers. It's profoundly valuable because just the sheer scale and automatability of now doing really smart AI web search. It's like if you hired somebody who was actually really good at Googling and finding results and then curating a report for you and giving you an answer, you can now execute that en masse and pretty consistently get really good results for, again, any question you want to ask at scale. And the final archetype of AI workflows we're really seeing take off amongst the enterprise is what I call advanced voice of customer. So voice of customer is a concept that's existed for a long time. You want to read customer feedback, you want to get insights out of it. But if you looked at the technology 5, 10 years ago, a lot of it was just really simple, right? Sentiment analysis, or maybe at best, simple keyword extraction. We've probably all seen the word maps of like, here's the words like blown up that are very frequently said. So maybe it's in a retail context, like returns might be like a very common thing, or faulty product or whatever. But it was very simple, right? I mean, you didn't really get a very human texture of what people are saying and really get like insights that otherwise maybe you would have had to go and talk to individual users or read through granular feedback for. And what I think is really exciting about AI today is that because these models are so smart and again so scalable and cheap, you can actually go and deploy these models at scale to take a bunch of, it could be customer feedback, it could be, call transcripts. If you are a B2B company, you talk to lots of customers, but you can take these like lengthy, basically pieces of customer feedback and insight and extract really intelligent insights from them. So for instance, even within Airtable, we're able to go in and find some really interesting competitive insights. So what competitors come up commonly, but also what is being said about our competition versus us when we go into our customers, right? We can look at things like, what are the major product gaps that keep coming up when we sell our product? Or even, what are some advanced ideas for new product features or even new product categories that we could go into that is surfacing from all of our rich context from customers, whether it's feedback being submitted to us or calls, et cetera. And really think of this as, if you were to have a smart strategist go out and listen to every call you've had with customers, every focus group, a report, every submitted piece of feedback, reviews, et cetera, and you could have them with like a really fine-tooth comb go in and try to find the insights that are really poignant, like look for the alpha that's really gonna give you a strategic unlock in the business versus just give you some simple categorization. That's really, really profound. And so this is also something that is unlocked by the advanced capabilities of the current models and the cheapness and speed with which you can deploy them. You can now do this over hundreds of thousands of hours worth of feedback that would have taken, an incredible amount of time for a human to read through, but now can be done by AI in parallel very, very quickly and very intelligently. So you get the better, faster, and cheaper with deploying AI into this kind of voice of customer feedback and insights curation context. So with that, just a quick recap. What we're seeing is there's customers out there, there's enterprises that are really looking at AI not as a plug-in turnkey solution, but this incredibly potent technology, and we've heard that theme echoed across some of the other talks today. But if you really understand how to take this model, which is basically intelligence in a bottle, and cheaply, scalably deploy it into these real world contexts where you get enormous value, we're seeing huge returns, and also just a really magical experience. I mean, there's nothing quite like going and putting in, let's say, a bunch of documents into a database, but then running AI against every single one and seeing instantly pop out insights that would have quite literally taken hours and hours for a human to go and read through. And you can do it instantly with AI, or the web search, or the customer feedback insights curation. So it's here and now. We've curated the 3 top workflows that we see amongst our customer base, and we hope that you can benefit from these and hopefully take action and try building these workflows in your own work settings, whether with Airtable or not. But the time is really here and now, and it's not the models. It's not about waiting until the models get smart enough or good enough, or somebody packages them up in a good enough container to just start using. It's here and now, and the companies that are figuring out how to innovate and be the winners of this era are already on that path. They're already making that progress. And so call to action for all of us to really lean in and figure out how can you start using AI meaningfully today in your own workflows. Thank you.